This podcast is not here to inspire you. It's here to make you think. You'll probably get uncomfortable, and that is the point. Because real growth starts when comfort ends. And if you want to lead, influence, or build anything with real sustainable impact, you can't afford to keep your head in the sand. I'm Elizabeth, your host, and this is What's Actually Happening, the truths behind human behavior, power, and leadership that you can't unsee once you hear them. Let's get into it. What if your high achieving wasn't part of an ambitious personality, but instead something you did without realizing to make yourself feel safe? Or what if your inability to say no was not because you were being nice? Maybe your people skills were actually the result of scanning 24/7, trying to remain rejection free. Most people think that their behaviors are part of their personality. The high achiever, the people person, being helpful, the one who always agrees. But what if those aren't who you are? What if they are what you do when your brain and body, also known as your nervous system, thinks that you are unsafe? And being unsafe to your nervous system can be as small as disappointing someone or as big as actual critical danger. Rarely can it tell the difference. Your nervous system runs like a tactical unit. As stress stacks, it deploys what I like to call specialized soldiers. And they each have a mission: stay safe, maintain control, avoid conflict, keep everyone comfortable. And you learn to use them early, often in childhood, but sometimes later in life. And they were put in place to protect you then. But now they're running on autopilot even when you don't need them. The beautiful thing about these soldiers is there is no bad soldier. In fact, each soldier has strengths and weaknesses. So by that logic, we don't want to fight our team or the team to fight each other. That would just be silly and useless now, wouldn't it? So the question isn't, is this soldier good or bad? The question is this soldier right for this specific situation? And this episode, we are kicking off the start of the series with the performer soldier. Imagine with me, you're at a work dinner and the conversation hits that awkward lull, the one where everyone looks around at each other. There's these faint smiles and questioning looks, and everyone's looking, thinking, okay, who's going to go first? Because this is uncomfortable. In that moment, your stomach drops like an elevator. You shift in your seat. You loosen your collar. Someone looks uncomfortable. And before you even think about it, you're in. Cue the joke. The room laughs. Awkwardness averted. And so you keep going. Story after story, reading faces, adjusting tone. You were made for this, making sure that everyone feels good. And before you know it, it's 2 hours later, and you're in the Uber, exhausted. You realize, not only did you not know if you said what you wanted to say tonight, you don't even know if what you said made an impact. You were too busy making sure that everyone else was comfortable and everyone else's agenda was managed. The performer just ran your entire evening. And if this feels painfully familiar, you're not alone. Meet your player. The performer was created in environments where praise came when they achieved, behaved perfectly, impressed others. Criticism came when the opposite happened. Maybe a parent or caregiver was stressed, unpredictable, or emotionally overwhelmed. So the performer became highly attuned to others' comfort and needs. They may have had a role like the peacemaker, the golden child, the emotionally mature one. They got very good at adjusting themselves. In fact, so good, they can mold themselves into be whatever you need them to be in that moment. There is an important nuance because not everyone who has performer tendencies grew up in a dramatic or bad childhood. Sometimes it did happen a bit later in life. Sometimes it was subtle. Maybe it is a household that looks fine, but lacks psychological safety. Or maybe you have a partner or caregivers or workplaces or friends who were inconsistent or overwhelmed and made you feel responsible for it. Praise-heavy environments without emotional reality was another big place where this would be created. And because it was learned early or incrementally, it doesn't feel like a strategy. It feels like a part of you, immediate, justified, like it's always been there, which is why most people, when they try to change at the level of that behavior, they fail. Because by the time you are aware of it, the pattern has already started. If you want to catch the pattern before it starts, you will have to know where the ignition is. Otherwise, you're playing whack-a-mole with inconsistent symptoms. It is a fabulous waste of energy and time because does it not make more sense to go after a root cause of one than to go after 16 unmanageable inconsistent symptoms? People miss the ignition because it doesn't start in your brain or even in your language. It actually starts in your body because the body is quicker to respond. It responds on the primal layer first. Think threat detection, like animals on the Serengeti with primal instincts. Now, for the performer, when they are going rogue, when that pattern starts in the body, it's going to feel like an electric buzz crawling under your skin, heat around your collar and upper chest, that flushing, subtle shifting of your stance. Your ribs will feel like they are locking over your heart. Your face becomes animated before you even choose for it to be animated. That is the start of your pattern. Now, fun fact, there are two versions of the performer. The regulated performer, that is the healthy one. That is when you are just yourself. You're expressive in your own way, present, not putting on a show. Your body feels relaxed. Your breath is calm and steady. You're not thinking about how you're coming across. You just are. That is what natural charisma actually feels like. The performer deployed properly. The adaptive performer is the rogue performer. This is when you're on, but not fully there. You're expressive on the outside, but internally you feel tight, rigid, but also fragile. Like you are aware of how you are being perceived constantly. It feels like a performance under pressure, a bit hollow, almost like acting, sometimes bad acting. The difference? The regulated version is choosing to be expressive and choosing to do so in their own way. But the adaptive version, well, they're performing because it does not feel safe to stop. But wait, there's more. Because with the performer, there's also a sublayer known as the overachiever. They overlap. They are both performing. They are not identical. The performer says, am I coming across the right way? The overachiever says, did I do it right? Different question, different body responses. The performer's body goes electric and expressive, but the overachiever's body, they go forward like a spring in the Achilles. The jaw is tight. The chest is tight. The eyes are focused. The performer is about how you come across. The overachiever is about how well you execute. You look composed and effortless on the outside, like a duck gliding across the pond. But underneath, your feet are going pitter-patter a mile a minute. There's nowhere for all of that internal pressure to go. So in that moment, when your ribs start to lock over your heart like a rigid cage, that is when you go from regulated to rogue. That's when the performer starts being controlled and stops being natural. And this is where you can catch it. And often we have both of these going on. And yes, it also happens to me. The rogue performer will deploy in a few instances, like when you have a chance to impress people or secure approval, maybe gain some accolades, or someone might see behind the curtain of perfection. Maybe the group dynamics need some management, like we spoke in the beginning, or there's an awkward moment, or there is a risk of being disliked, rejected, or seen as incompetent. And that last one does sting, doesn't it? The performer is always with you. It is not the problem. It is when they deploy without your permission and they go rogue that you end up with the costs, not the benefits. And those costs? Well, when this soldier is rogue, here's what will weaken them. Very few people will know the real you. You will be known for the performance, but not as an actual person. If this has been your consistent baseline, you must maintain that role every day. No bad days allowed, no failures. And people will remind you of that if you have played that role in their life. Your success is tied to reactions, which means you will always be scanning, tracking emotional shifts, any disapproval forming, and you don't want to miss a chance to impress. That scanning never turns off. You become exhausted from hiding the work behind the achievement because achievements, they do take work. That's where this exhaustion lives. It's not in what you do. It's in the constant monitoring of how you are being received. But it is not all gloom and doom, so let's meet your player's strengths, shall we? Because the performer can actually shift the entire group mood in seconds. They make people feel instantly comfortable because they understand what will resonate with them. They're highly likable. People are naturally drawn to them, and they often, especially if they're overachiever, have higher standards than most, so you can expect quality. These are real skills. They are assets. Deployed correctly, the performer is actually one of the most powerful players on your team because they have people skills. And who are your clients, your team, your employees, your family, your partner, your customers? People. So wouldn't it make sense that a soldier who is effective with people and quality is also who you want on your team? So this doesn't stay theoretical. This is what my personal performer looked like in real life. I used to be a cosmetic tattoo artist. I was responsible for tattooing eyebrows on women's faces. Yes, I understand that is an interesting career choice. Performance in that job was not optional. It was required. It was expected. You are executing something permanent on someone's face. So you better hope you don't have an off day. And you're not just doing the work of the technical application. No, you are actually the emotional thermostat for both yourself and the client in a room doing intense precision-based work with real impact. It's on their face after all. No one is going to hand over their control, their vulnerability, their fears, and their hard-earned money if you seem uncomfortable, even slightly. So you are the container, the safety for everything, their expectations, their preferences, their doubt, their safety, their results, all of it. Some days I was fully in my element. I loved it. I loved how I could make people feel instantly comfortable in their appointment and after. How I could name the elephant in the room, the giant case of nerves that comes with permanently inking your face. But some days, it did feel like a performance. It did feel like having to be on. And you know the moment when you shut the door and your face changes. That is the performer. Not because you want to fake anything, or I wanted to fake anything, but because it didn't feel safe or responsible to not be on. Now, theory is great, but it's not about to change your life. So what do we do to alleviate the pressure on the performer so that they can be more effective and efficient? Well, you don't shut the soldier down. You learn to catch it earlier, before the joke, before the adjustment. So here's your mission. Catch it once to start, not 10 times, not even the perfect moment. And I know you want it to be perfect here, you little overachiever, but that's not what we're doing here. In fact, even doing it once is going to be more than what most people do in their whole entire life. And there is a trick. If you can't catch it in real time, because this will take some tries, you're not going to be a specialist in this overnight, but go back to the last moment that you changed the room dynamics or you hit your goal and still feel like you failed, and then reverse engineer the pattern. Step 1, you're going to notice the ignition point in your body. That might be the electric buzz crawling underneath your skin, the heat around your collar. It could be your ribs starting to close. That is your cue. Step 2, do nothing. Just pause and expect it to feel uncomfortable. Expect you to have that urge to jump in. Don't. Step 3, stay in that feeling for 90 seconds, not to fix it or escape it, to feel it. It often takes the body 90 seconds to crest with full intensity of that feeling before it will taper off. The problem is when people cut off the completion of that crest and end up looping for hours instead. It's almost like a wave. We are building nervous system tolerance here. It's like reps in the gym. It's going to be uncomfortable if you want any change. Step 4, breathe. A 4-second inhale, a 6-second exhale. And then from that state, ask yourself this question. Do I actually need to say something? Or, if you're overachieving, do I really need to achieve right now? Or am I just uncomfortable? So now you've met the performer, not as a personality, but as a pattern, a response your nervous system learned to keep you safe. And now you can see it, not after the fact, but while it's happening, if not before. That moment where your body changes, where the urge to smooth it over, become that emotional thermostat, or achieve and perform kicks in. That's the moment the pattern initiates, because now you can choose. This was never about being a high achiever or being likable. It was about safety the entire time. So the question becomes, is it still protecting you, or is it draining you? And can you feel it early enough to choose differently? That's a wrap for this week's Performer Soldier. Next week, we are jumping into the fixer. And if you are someone that is the go-to for everyone's problems, and also the one that can't find anyone to help you when it's your turn with a problem, this one is for you. And that's a wrap. See, that wasn't so bad, was it? Uncomfortable? Sure. But necessary. Because change doesn't happen from hopes and wishes, as nice as that would be. Come back for more truths you didn't want to hear, but will definitely think about later. Because this is what's actually happening. I'll see you on the next one.